Hi guys, so today, as we're running into the ramp up to the busy season, and people are starting to think about hiring more and more. We're coming out of that very slow season, and in February we see that transition point where hires do increase, more families are considering, hey, we should really change the person we have now or make a hire as we're going in towards summer. So I want to talk about what you should look for when you're hiring. If you're working on your own or working with an agency, either way, you still should be cognizant of these things. Any great agency like ours is going to guide you through the process, but here's some things to think about if you're doing this on your own. So first off, you want to work with someone who you have a good click with, a good vibe, you have a good gut instinct about. I know this probably seems like a minor detail, but it's critically important. Think about all the things that your spouse does that kind of irritate you or bother you. What mitigates those from going from a 2 or a 3 to an 8 or a 10 on the scale of like, you're driving me crazy? It's really our relational connection with that person. They say that 60% of the success of a therapeutic relationship in terms of mental health is down to nothing more than the connection, the vibe between the therapist and the patient. Your therapist could have gone to Harvard. They could be, well, Harvard, let's put that aside. Your therapist could have gone to the best training institute in the world, and they still might have a very poor therapeutic outcome with you if you two don't click. I've been there and done that. You know, click is important, but with domestic staff, even more so, because you don't visit them once a week. They're in your home every day. So this is vital because there are going to be frustrations on your side and on their side. And if you both have just an understanding between you, you like each other, you feel good with each other, you appreciate and understand that person, it's going to go so far in navigating those shallow waters, those cliffs, those, unforeseen problems that are going to come up. They're going to be so much easier to navigate through if you have a good relationship. Okay, secondly, I truly believe that people are their behavior. People are their behavior. The history of someone's employment and their resume really speaks to how they've behaved in previous jobs, as do their references. Now, in terms of references, if you're working with a great agency like ours, then you have someone checking references for you and listening out for the right things. Sometimes I hear clients say, I'd like to speak to the references myself. They do. And then they decide against hiring, or they get nervous about hiring someone who up to that point they thought is great for them, I think is great for them, because they hear something in a way that they take that information and either extrapolate it in the wrong direction, or they maybe don't have the insider view of the industry and to understand that in any past job, the employee is 50% of the equation. And I see the gamut of employers out there. We kind of all assume, well, every employer is like us. Sort of like if you're not religious and you didn't date in a religiously Jewish way of arranged marriage, so to speak, and you're coming at this from having past relationships, you might hear from someone, oh yes, my ex was so crazy. And we assume that that person behaved in the relationship just as we would, like for sure they were normal. But you don't know if they invited the crazy in. You don't know if they instigated the crazy, if they were seeking the crazy. So sometimes with references, there's just, you have to use a grain or 2 or 3 of salt. It goes beyond just a grain of salt. You have to really understand the picture of the person you're talking to. As we're speaking to the references, we're also getting a sense of their previous employer. And that helps us put things in perspective. And also, sometimes we understand that an issue that's brought up that's this big in a reference conversation, a client could make this big in their mind very easily. If a client's had recently a really horrible experience with a past hire, they're very nervous. They're coming into this just looking for any warning sign, like, oh, that happened? No, I can't hire them. So we know kind of that perspective and proportion, just kind of like sometimes my teenage kids will get really upset about something. And I'll say, hey, in the course of your life, a C on a math test in high school in your freshman year, you're still going to get a job. You're not going to end up homeless. So sometimes just being able to put things in perspective is great. So I think clients should check references if they want. I think they should understand that there's more to everything than just what they're hearing, and that that's part of what we check in our reference checks. So past performance is important. Part of judging that takes, the experience of over 10 years. How many resumes have I checked? How many references have I spoken to? So just kind of having that expertise is why you come to an agency like ours, of really being able to extrapolate down the road and understand how the qualities that you're hearing about or seeing in someone are going to project in the future in the context of your job and your home, because how they projected in a different home environment, a different job, could change the outcome. So anyway, that really goes to experience, but you yourself could just look at the resume, look for gaps in employment, look for short-term employment over and over again. Definitely a warning sign. Look in the references if you hear, yeah, they were okay, and they don't want to offer any other information, I would be concerned. We would not accept that as a great reference check. People want to talk if they're invited in the right way. So those are, people are behavior, and the behavior needs to be looked at, of course. Personality and the click isn't everything. The behavior comes next. And then thirdly, I would just think of what your priorities are. My priority is my children. Does she have so much cleaning experience? Not really, but my priority is my children. So prioritize your hiring based on that. It's nearly impossible to get someone who can do everything well. Can you do everything well in a job that demands a pretty well-rounded performance, such as someone who's babysitting and housekeeping, or a housekeeper who's multitasking many jobs at a house if you also want them to cook, and they're an okay cook, but it's not their best skill? The more you're demanding, the more you can't expect expertise in infant childcare, plus they can clean well and they can cook well. Then you would need to, if you want them to be a Jane of all trades or a Jack of all trades, you kind of need to lower the bar all across in order to get everything mediocre. So pick what's your priority. This is really important to me. And then as you've prioritized those things, you can only really factor in those other qualities in the final decision. So those are just a few recommendations for you if you're trying to do this alone. Of course, nowadays, more than ever before, I would recommend you not make such an important decision on your own. There is a reason that companies have HR departments. There is a reason that agencies exist. There are a lot of crummy agencies out there, agencies that just want to take your money and walk away. I'll make another video about what makes a good agency and what makes a bad agency. But any good agency should really want to guide you through this process and beyond. So I would say making a $30,000+ decision involving your children, who are priceless, involving your home, which is your private sanctuary in this world and where you keep very sensitive information, to do that unguided, unaware of all of the red flags. I haven't even begun to touch the surface here. All of the important things you should look for, not having that outsider's perspective on excuse my dog running in the background. I have a puppy. I would say that's challenging. It's a risk. It's a risk. You wouldn't buy a car without ever looking at one review, ever talking to anyone else, and just, buying one off Craigslist. You wouldn't do it. And that's a car. It's significantly less important than the person who's going to be working with your family 40 plus hours a week and in your home and with your children. So I hope that helps. And we're here to answer any questions. No pressure. I take informational calls all the time. No obligation, no charge. I just do truly want to see families make safe, good hires out there. So if we can help, we're here. And good luck in hiring the right person for your family. Stay safe.